Have you ever found yourself completely engrossed in learning something new, time just melting away, only to realize later you've retained a surprising amount of information? Or conversely, have you ever struggled to cram for an exam or sat through a seemingly endless lecture only to find that almost nothing stuck? What if I told you that the difference between these two experiences isn't just about motivation or inherent talent, but about understanding how your brain actually works? This isn't about some new age feel-good philosophy. We are talking about cold hard science, cognitive science to be precise. For centuries, we've approached learning with a rather simplistic view. Think of the traditional classroom setting. A teacher lecturing, students passively taking notes, and then the dreaded standardized test. This model, while familiar, often fails to truly engage our brains in the way they are wired to learn. It's like trying to build a skyscraper with blueprints designed for a log cabin. It might technically work, but it's far from optimal. The fascinating thing is, we now have a much better blueprint, one based on decades of research into how the human brain processes, stores, and retrieves information. This blueprint applies whether you're 8 years old or 80, learning to play the ukulele or mastering quantum physics. We are going to explore the principles of brain-based learning, principles that are universal, timeless, and incredibly powerful. These aren't abstract theories, but practical, actionable strategies you can use to optimize your learning, no matter what you are trying to master. And it's crucial to understand that learning is not confined to formal education. We are always learning, picking up new skills at work, navigating new technologies, even understanding the nuances of social interactions. Every single moment of our lives is a learning opportunity. First, let's bust a few myths. You've probably heard the one about us only using 10% of our brains. Utter nonsense. It's like saying we only use 10% of our lungs to breathe. Our brains are constantly active, even when we're sleeping. Another pervasive myth is the idea of learning styles, that some people are visual learners, others auditory, and so on. While it's true that we might have preferences, research overwhelmingly shows that relying on a single learning style is actually detrimental to learning. Our brains thrive on variety and multisensory input. Cognitive science, the umbrella term encompassing neuroscience, psychology, and related fields, gives us a far more nuanced and accurate understanding. It tells us that learning is not a passive process of absorbing information, but an active process of constructing knowledge. It's not about simply receiving, but about engaging, connecting, and making meaning. This active engagement is the cornerstone of effective learning. Think about it. When are you most likely to remember something? When you're passively listening to a lecture, or when you're actively involved in a discussion, solving a problem, or applying what you've learned in a real-world scenario? Let's delve into the core principles. First and foremost, attention. Your brain is constantly bombarded with sensory input, sights, sounds, smells, thoughts. It simply can't process everything. Attention is like a spotlight, focusing on what's relevant and filtering out the rest. This spotlight, however, has a very limited range. We cannot truly multitask. Trying to juggle multiple tasks simultaneously doesn't make you more productive. It actually makes you less effective at each individual task. Your brain ends up switching rapidly between tasks, which is incredibly inefficient and leads to shallow processing. So how do you capture and hold that precious attentional spotlight? Novelty, relevance, and emotion. Our brains are wired to pay attention to things that are new, surprising, or unexpected. Think about a sudden loud noise. It instantly grabs your attention. Similarly, information that is relevant to your goals, needs, and interests is much more likely to stick. And finally, emotions play a crucial role. Think about a deeply emotional experience from your past. You probably remember it in vivid detail. This is because emotionally charged events trigger the release of neurochemicals that strengthen memory consolidation. This brings us to memory, which is, of course, fundamental to learning. We often think of memory as a single entity, like a filing cabinet where we store information. But cognitive science tells us that memory is far more complex and dynamic. It's a network of interconnected systems, constantly being updated and reshaped by our experiences. One of the most powerful techniques for enhancing memory is spaced repetition. This isn't about cramming everything into one marathon study session. It's about revisiting information at increasingly longer intervals. Think of it like building muscle. You don't lift weights once and expect to be strong forever. You need to train consistently with rest periods in between to allow your muscles to grow. Spaced repetition works on the same principle, strengthening the neural connections associated with the memory over time. Equally important is retrieval practice, actively testing yourself on the material. This isn't about rote memorization. It's about actively retrieving the information from your memory. Think flashcards, practice quizzes, or even just explaining the concept to someone else. The act of retrieval itself strengthens the memory trace, making it more likely that you'll remember it in the future. It's far more effective than simply rereading your notes, which can create a false sense of familiarity without actually strengthening long-term retention. Another key aspect of memory is elaboration. This involves connecting new information to what you already know. It's about making meaning, building bridges between different concepts, and creating a rich network of associations. Think about it. If you try to learn a new word in a foreign language by simply repeating it over and over, it might stick for a short time, but it's unlikely to stay with you. But if you connect that word to a vivid image, a personal experience, or a related word you already know, it becomes much more memorable. And let's not forget the crucial role of sleep. While we sleep, our brains are far from inactive. They are busy consolidating memories, transferring information from short-term to long-term storage. This is why pulling an all-nighter before an exam is often counterproductive. You might be able to cram a lot of information into your short-term memory, but without adequate sleep, much of it will be lost. A good night's sleep is not a luxury. It's a cognitive necessity. The memory of work is also a very limited resource. Now let's talk about emotions. A positive learning environment, whether it's a formal classroom or your own personal study space, is essential. Curiosity, enthusiasm, and a sense of safety and belonging all facilitate learning. Conversely, stress and anxiety are detrimental. When you're stressed, your brain releases cortisol, a hormone that interferes with learning and memory. This is why creating a low-stress, supportive environment is so crucial, especially for children, but equally important for adults. Creating emotional relevance, making it meaningful for you, is very important. One of the most amazing discoveries of modern neuroscience is the concept of plasticity. Your brain is not a fixed, unchanging entity. It's constantly rewiring itself based on your experiences. Every time you learn something new, your brain forms new neural connections or strengthens existing ones. This means that your capacity for learning is not predetermined. It's something you can actively cultivate throughout your life. This is incredibly empowering. It means that you are not stuck with the brain you were born with. You have the power to shape your brain, to enhance your cognitive abilities through your choices and actions. Neurogenesis, the birth of new neurons, is another crucial concept. For a long time, it was believed that adults couldn't generate new brain cells. We now know that this is not true. Neurogenesis occurs throughout life, particularly in the hippocampus, a brain region crucial for learning and memory. And what stimulates neurogenesis? Things like exercise, learning new things, and engaging in challenging mental activities. Feedback is another cornerstone of effective learning. We learn by making mistakes, and feedback helps us identify those mistakes and correct them. This feedback can come from a variety of sources: a teacher, a mentor, a friend, or even yourself through self-assessment. But the key is that the feedback should be constructive and timely. It's not about criticism. It's about providing specific, actionable information that helps you improve. And it's most effective when it's delivered soon after the performance, while the experience is still fresh in your mind. It is also about valuing the whole learning process, not just the results. Metacognition, or thinking about thinking, is also a powerful tool for optimizing learning. It involves being aware of your own cognitive processes, how you learn, what strategies work best for you, and where you tend to struggle. By developing your metacognitive skills, you can become a more strategic and self-directed learner. This might involve setting learning goals, planning your study time, monitoring your comprehension, and adjusting your strategies as needed. And collaborative learning boosts metacognition. Let's look at some practical applications. If you're engaging in self-directed learning, say learning a new programming language, you would start by setting clear, specific goals. What exactly do you want to be able to do with this language? Then, you would create a learning plan, breaking down the task into smaller, manageable chunks. You might use a variety of resources, online tutorials, textbooks, coding challenges. You would regularly test yourself, identifying areas where you need to improve. And you might seek feedback from other programmers, perhaps by joining an online community or forum. In the workplace, these principles can be applied to training and development programs. Instead of long, passive lectures, training sessions should be interactive and engaging, incorporating activities like problem-solving, simulations, and group discussions. Spaced repetition can be used to reinforce key concepts and retrieval. Practice can be incorporated through quizzes and practical exercises. Mentorship programs can provide valuable feedback and guidance, and a culture of continuous learning should be fostered. In the family setting, parents can create a learning-rich environment by encouraging curiosity, providing opportunities for exploration, and modeling a love of learning themselves. Reading aloud to children, engaging in conversations, playing games, and exploring the world together are all powerful ways to stimulate learning. And importantly, it's about showing children that learning is a lifelong journey, not just something that happens in school. For older adults, lifelong learning is crucial for maintaining cognitive health and well-being. Engaging in mentally stimulating activities such as learning a new language, playing a musical instrument, or taking up a new hobby can help keep the brain active and engaged. Social interaction is also crucial, as it provides opportunities for learning and cognitive stimulation. Combating isolation is essential, as social isolation can have a detrimental impact on cognitive function. And in the realm of online learning, the very popular e-learning engagement and interaction are very important. These principles are not just abstract theories, they are practical tools that you can use to enhance your learning, regardless of your age, background, or the specific subject matter. The key is to move away from the passive, rote memorization approach that is so prevalent in traditional education, and to embrace a more active, engaged, and brain-friendly approach. Learning is not a spectator sport, it's a participatory process. So the next time you embark on a learning endeavor, remember these principles. Pay attention to what captures your attention. Practice retrieving information rather than simply rereading it. Connect new information to what you already know, get enough sleep, create a positive learning environment. Embrace challenges and mistakes as opportunities for growth. And most importantly, remember that your brain is an incredible, adaptable organ, capable of far more than you might imagine. What if you started viewing learning not as a chore, but as an adventure, a journey of discovery? What new skills could you master? What new knowledge could you acquire? What new possibilities could you unlock? The power to optimize your learning is in your hands. It's not about having a good brain or a bad brain. It's about understanding how your brain works and using that knowledge to your advantage. This is an invitation to take control of your learning journey, to become a more effective, engaged, and lifelong learner. It's a shift in perspective from seeing learning as something that happens to you to something you actively cultivate. And that shift can make all the difference. The human brain is a remarkably adaptable and dynamic organ, constantly changing and evolving in response to our experiences. This is something within your reach, regardless of your background, your age, or your perceived abilities. It's about understanding the principles that govern how we learn and applying those principles to become a more effective, engaged, and empowered learner.